NRC's financial code was revised, and a revised draft version was put on the Finance Ministry's website inviting comments. It's a bulky document, some 300 pages of legalese, so we couldn't really go through the entire thing. But one of the key takeaways from that document was that the Monetary Policy Committee that is going to be constituted, proposed to be constituted, will have 4 members from the government and 3 members from the Reserve Bank, and the governor will have, as the chairman, a casting vote in case of voting on the policy issues. He will not have a veto over what the MPC says or does. Is this the way to go? We will be asking Dr. C. Rangarajan, former Reserve Bank Governor and Chairman of the PMEAC, the Prime Minister's Advisory Council. Dr. Rangarajan, good morning and thank you very much for joining us, sir. Well, this is a distance away. First, we have to agree on the MPC and then the governor's ability to veto or not. But per se, what is your view? Should the governor be given a veto? In several countries, the Fed chairman, for instance, doesn't have a veto.
Well, it all depends upon the nature of the committee. Because if you have a committee of 7 with 4 people from outside and 3 from the Reserve Bank, then it's a different matter. I don't think that's the right approach. I believe that the majority of the members must be from the Reserve Bank. Earlier, when the government and the Reserve Bank came out with a new framework, monetary policy framework, fixing the responsibility for holding inflation within certain limits by the Reserve Bank, I welcomed it. But the constitution of a committee of 7 with 4 from outside dilutes the responsibility of the Reserve Bank and its accountability. Therefore, I would go in for a committee in which the majority is that of the Reserve Bank. So let us say a committee of 5 with 3 from the Reserve Bank and 2 external. In which case, the question of the veto is not really very relevant. I therefore think that the right approach is to, if at all to have a monetary policy committee, then it must be a committee in which the majority of the members are from the Reserve Bank.
Okay. Well, would it be very infructuous if what is now proposed happens?
Well, I don't think that it is inconsistent with the policy framework, which makes the Reserve Bank responsible for holding inflation within certain limits. How can you hold the Reserve Bank or the management of the Reserve Bank, including the governor, responsible if important policy decisions are decided by a committee in which they do not have the majority? Therefore, I think there is an internal contradiction in this. Therefore, if at all a committee of this is to be formed, then I suppose the Reserve Bank governor should have a veto.
Okay. Well, the other point is, you said if at all there is a committee, would you prefer a committee approach to monetary policy making or the single man approach that we have had all these years?
No, I had earlier proposed that we have a committee from the board of the Reserve Bank itself. I mean, when we set up the board for financial supervision, we did that. I mean, we took people from the board who have special knowledge and expertise in this area and constituted a committee. It is quite possible even now. There are members in the Reserve Bank board, which is itself nominated by the government, people with expertise in monetary and other areas. Therefore, a committee of the board could be formed, and that could guide the governor in his monetary policy decisions.
Okay. Well, there are a couple of other things that we have managed to get as revisions in the financial code. One is that RBI's regulations will not go on appeal to the proposed FSAT, the Appellate Tribunal. That's a good development, you think?
Well, it is good in an important way because then the authority of the Reserve Bank is well established. But there should also be some provision where in case of the banks or somebody not pleased with the particular order, they should be able to go somewhere to get a redressal. I think in the case of the SEBI, as you know, that many decisions taken by the SEBI board have been reversed by the appellate authority. Therefore, I personally think that there should be some via media there. I mean, I think it should not be that all decisions of the Reserve Bank should go to an appellate authority.
Okay.
But some mechanism must be there for appeal against some decisions of the Reserve Bank.
Okay. Finally, sir, are we worrying about this whole thing too prematurely? The Financial Code actually tries to amend a whole host of acts, SEBI Act, RBI Act, set up recovery institutions, set up consumer courts for financial problems. I mean, it's a massive constitution to the financial sector itself. Can this be passed at all? Are we worrying about something which should not be the preoccupation? We should be worrying about something else.
Well, I think it's a massive piece of legislation. I sometimes wonder whether that is a route that we should take. Whether we can have one legislation which prescribes some general principles and leave the RBI Act and the SEBI Act and others as they are now, with some modifications that may be required. But there could be some general legislation stating some principles relating to consumer protection and so on. Therefore, we need to discuss all of this. But you are right. I think it's going to be a long haul before any change can be really attempted.
Okay, so why worry about it now?
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Rangarajan, before we let you go, since we have you with us, we are at the onset of the next RBI policy on the 4th of August. What is your own view? Do you think that the Reserve Bank governor should keep the rates on hold, considering that we did see a spike up in the June CPI data and core inflation also has been spiking up for the last couple of months?
Well, I think I do not know whether any further data on price will come before the policy decision. I think there is none.
Yes.
Therefore, they will have to make up their mind on the data already available. The question really is that whether going ahead, how inflation will move. I do personally think that the monsoon is not as bad as it was feared earlier, and perhaps the inflation, the food inflation, might remain more subdued than what was feared earlier. Therefore, going ahead, that food inflation may not be such a major concern as we thought about a month ago. Certainly, non-food manufacturing inflation is very much under control. The pricing power is not there. Therefore, one could possibly wait for another 6 weeks, by which time the full monsoon picture will be known. But if the inflation numbers will remain more or less at this level, that is the case. But I will not really say that it should be done right away or 6 weeks later. I think it's a judgment.
Fair point, sir. Thank you very much for joining us with your initial thoughts on the revisions to the Financial Code. I think, as Dr. Rangarajan said, we are worrying about this prematurely. I don't see such a massive piece of legislation getting passed by a parliament which refuses to even meet and sit and talk to each other. It's only placard waving and yelling that we get. So, I mean, I don't know when this code will be introduced and whether it will be discussed and how much. And this is not the way to go. To try and rewrite the Constitution is not a very good idea when there are other pressing demands. And this is really the opinion of the Commission. It's not the government's opinion and not the RBI's opinion. But academically, the issue is discussed, and a veto for the governor is what a former governor and a very respected financial sector expert wants.
Well, I don't know much about this issue, but all I feel is that the governor to not get the veto power is pretty unfair, considering that, he's accountable for all the decisions, but then he doesn't get the final authority.
Absolutely. If you are being judged for what you're anchoring, but you're not allowed to say what you have to say, then you can't be judged. Well, before we wrap up on Bazaar, just a word on the markets. Holding flat, about 1/3% lower, not much in terms of losses, and mid-cap still holding up. So clearly there are trading ideas on the long and the short side. All that coming up for you in just a minute on Trader Zone.